Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Dayspring Discussions. I'm your host, Sean McGahee, and this is a show where we talk about movies, TV, sci-fi, fantasy, comic books. If you geek out about it, we're going to talk about it. You can find Dayspring Discussions on our Facebook group and on Twitter, and hit us up at dayspringdiscussions@gmail.com, and you can listen to Dayspring Discussions on iTunes, YouTube, Podomatic, and now Patreon, guys. Well, happy Friday. The weekend is upon us. Only one more week, guys, till Justice League. Actually, less than that, considering it comes out on Thursday nights, as well as The Punisher on Netflix is almost here, too. Now, I am off next Friday, that is right, so I plan on spending a week from today watching a couple episodes of Punisher, and then going out to see Justice League in theaters with Lisa and a couple friends. So it's going to be a good Friday next Friday. I'm looking forward to it. And speaking of Good Fridays, boy, oh boys, we got a show for you today. Now, before I get into the big news that happened yesterday, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, you obviously don't know me at all and don't check the Facebook group. Before I get into that, I'm going to let you know that last night I went out and saw the new Kenneth Branagh film, Murder on the Orient Express. Now, this is based off a book by Agatha Christie that stars one of her popular characters, Poirot. And I know I said that name wrong because my wife, who is a fan of the character and has seen many BBC films about him and has read several books, always tells me that I pronounce it wrong. But nevertheless, I went and saw the film last night starring Kenneth Branagh, Daisy Ridley, Michelle Pfeiffer, Johnny Depp, Judi Dench, just an all-star cast for this film. And to be honest, I liked it. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it. Some reviews have been negative in regards to the film, but I thought it was okay. To be honest, anyone who's listened to this podcast the last week or so knows I'm not that through with Thor Ragnarok. And I will say that I enjoyed this film more than I enjoyed Thor Ragnarok. So there's that. If you're into a good mystery, I recommend checking it out. I was entertained. Kenneth Branagh does a good job. Michelle Pfeiffer, I thought, did a really good job too. And then Johnny Depp, he's not in the film a lot, but he plays his part very well. Overall, good cast, decent film, so you can go check that out this weekend while you're waiting for Justice League to come out next weekend, alright? Now, last night I got out of the film around midnight, and I've been at work all day too, so I turn on my phone, and what do I see but the internet has literally exploded with information and news. It's just crazy how many things that I want to talk about that happened yesterday, but I don't have the time to talk about all of them. So hopefully, over the next couple days, I'll be able to get to it. Of course, it is Friday, so I probably won't have a show till Monday. So we'll see what happens in between then. Might be some news stories to talk about. If not, I'll get to those other stories on Monday. But right now, let me just talk about the big one, and that is Lucasfilm and Disney are planning a new Star Wars trilogy post Episode 9 that comes out in several years. So Episode 9 comes out, I think it's 2020, I believe. No, 2019. And J.J. Abrams is directing it. And then it was announced by Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy that Star Wars The Last Jedi director Rian Johnson himself is going to oversee this new trilogy. And it's not going to be about the Skywalkers. It's going to be something completely different. Lucasfilm came out and said, quote, "As writer-director of The Last Jedi, Johnson conceived and realized a powerful film of which Lucasfilm and Disney are immensely proud of. In shepherding his new trilogy, which is separate from the episodic Skywalker saga, Johnson will continue new characters from a corner of the galaxy that Star Wars lore has never before explored." Now, president of Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, said he's a creative force, and watching him craft The Last Jedi from start to finish was one of the great joys of my life. Rian will do amazing things with the blank canvas of this new trilogy. And then, of course, Rian Johnson had to chime in saying, quote, "We had the time of our lives collaborating with Lucasfilm and Disney on The Last Jedi. Star Wars is the greatest modern mythology, and we feel very lucky to have contributed to it. We can't wait to continue with this new series of films." Big news, guys. Big news in the world of Star Wars. It got me super excited. Last week on the Star Wars show, Kathleen Kennedy talked about how they're talking about the next 10 years of films, of Star Wars films at Lucasfilm and what to do. And I think this is pretty much what they were talking about. I think this is also kind of the reason Rian Johnson didn't direct Episode 9. Now, beforehand, when J.J. Abrams took over and people wanted Rian Johnson to do it, I said, no, Ryan's got to focus on finishing up The Last Jedi. J.J. Abrams can focus on getting Episode 9 started up. I thought it was a fine idea. This kind of lends the idea that the reason Johnson didn't do Episode 9 is because he's going to be gearing up for this new trilogy. And I like it, the fact that it's not going to be Skywalker-centered. Now, several years ago, Kathleen Kennedy came out and said that the episode films are about the Skywalkers. I get it, that's fine, but that was several years ago. Ideas change, things change. This one, a new trilogy, looks like it's not going to be about the Skywalkers, and I'm fine with that. That's cool, as long as you tell me a good story in the Star Wars universe. And have Jedi. You gotta have lightsabers. Lightsabers are key. So now the speculation can begin as to what this new trilogy is going to be about. Is it going to take place past Episode 9? Could it take place in the past? A lot of people, including myself, are clamoring for a Star Wars Old Republic, either TV series or movie trilogy. Now, along with this news too, it came out from Disney and Lucasfilm that they are putting out a new live-action TV series that's going to be on the Disney streaming service that comes out in late 2019. We know nothing about it, about what it's going to be about, but Disney's Bob Iger also announced that they're working on a TV series based off Pixar's Monsters, Inc. movie franchise and off their High School Musical franchise as well. And an original Marvel series too. So a lot of stuff going on in the Disney streaming service. A Star Wars live-action series we kind of thought about. So the question is, fans are clamoring for an Old Republic something. Is it going to be this new trilogy? Or is it going to be the TV series? I don't know. A TV series would be cool. You could be very much a Game of Thrones style. But like I was talking about earlier this week in regards to a Lord of the Rings TV series, something of that caliber has to be very high budget to do it right in a TV series or episodic series. And the same thing goes with an Old Republic. Game of Thrones is a very expensive show, I know, to make. And I feel like a Star Wars show, especially an Old Republic show, would be even more expensive to make. Now, years ago, before Lucas actually sold Lucasfilm to Disney, he had written, I think it was 100 episodes of a Star Wars Underground series. It was a series that centered around the underbelly of Coruscant and bounty hunters and scum and stuff like that. And he wrote a bunch of scripts for it, but never got produced. The main reason being, each episode was going to be so expensive to make, so they couldn't do it. Now that Disney's with it, they obviously have funding to where if they wanted to put those in motion, they possibly could. So I feel like that is a possibility for the TV series, and maybe an Old Republic is a possibility for a film trilogy. I think if you go back and you talk about not really the beginnings of the Jedi, but maybe the fall of the Sith. In Star Wars Legends, there's a whole Sith war about how the rule of two came to be, how there used to be lots of Sith and they, dwindled and killed themselves, and how there used to be just the rule of two that we see starting in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. You could tell about the Sith and Jedi Wars and how that all came to be. I think it'd be immensely entertaining, and I watched the hell out of it. Now, this also tells us that Lucasfilm and Disney probably are over the moon as to what Rian Johnson has done with The Last Jedi. The film still is over a month away from coming out, and they're already giving this guy the keys to the kingdom. Now, it makes sense, though, because with Rian Johnson and these new set of Star Wars films, he's really the only director that we've heard about or rumored having not any issues with Lucasfilm or collaborating with Lucasfilm. Of course, you have the infamous Phil Lord and Chris Miller on the Han Solo film. You have Colin Trevorrow, who dropped out of Episode 9. You have Gareth Edwards, who worked on Rogue One. And I don't think he had problems there, but Lucasfilm stepped in towards the end there and did some major edits to the end of the film. And then there's even rumors that in The Force Awakens, J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy had a few heated debates. Not really squabbles or arguments, but heated debates about things in regards to that film. So Rian Johnson is the only one we've heard of as of right now that has gone smooth sailing with Lucasfilm. So it would make sense that they would keep him around, especially if they're happy with what The Last Jedi is. Now, heaven forbid The Last Jedi be bad. I think that might change up plans a little bit, but I think Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Iger, Disney, they've all seen the film. They all probably love the film. They think audiences will love the film. So I don't think they'd make this kind of announcement or this kind of decision unless they were sure that Last Jedi was at least a pretty good film. And let's not forget that Rian Johnson may be working on a new trilogy of Star Wars films, but then we've also got all the spin-off films that are coming. People are still hoping for an Obi-Wan spin-off announcement. I always felt like the spin-off trilogy might be some Old Republic stuff too. I don't know, we'll just wait and see, but Lucasfilm obviously has lots of ideas and has a plan for what they're going to do with the Star Wars franchise in the future. And as a Star Wars fan, I'm super excited about it. After I see The Last Jedi, and I'm hoping it's as good as I think it is, I'm probably going to get more excited about it. So that's going to be awesome, but stay tuned. And the more this story develops, you know we're going to be talking about it. But I think it might be a little while before we actually figure out what Rian Johnson's new trilogy is that he's going to be directing and writing and ushering in a new era of Star Wars. Super exciting, guys. Okay, moving on to the next subject of today. Now, what kind of show would this be that references X-Men in the title if I didn't talk about some big X-Men news that happened today? So, fans already know that the return of the original Jean Grey is coming in the upcoming Phoenix Resurrection miniseries. Now, Marvel put out a little video yesterday called X-Men Jean Grey Through the Years on YouTube, and it was a minute-long retrospective of the character from her days of the original X-Men through the Dark Phoenix saga to X-Factor to New X-Men, a whole brief summary of Jean Grey's life. And at the end, it added a new aspect to it called X-Men Red. Now, as we know, right now the X-Men storylines are X-Men Blue, which consists of the original time-traveling X-Men, and then X-Men Gold, which is pretty much the veteran X-Men. Well, this adds a new color to the mix, and we find out that when Jean Grey returns, she's going to be leading her own team in X-Men Red. Now, no other details are kind of brought about this series, except that Jean Grey is going to have a new costume that resembles a lot of her famous 90s costume. The miniseries Phoenix Resurrection comes out December 27th, and X-Men Red is going to come along February 2018. I'm sure we'll get some more details about that. Now, Jean Grey, for those who don't know, has been dead for a while now, considering, she's a comic book character, and these days, comic book characters die and come back to life more than people pop vitamins in the morning. But Jean Grey died back in New X-Men in 2014 and has been gone ever since. However, we have gotten in recent years the teenage version of the character brought back from the past to the present, and she's been around for several years now along with the original X-Men and doing a pretty good job. I really enjoyed what they've been doing with her and the new X-Men, and I always thought they'd always go back to the past, but they're sticking around. I'm not sure what that does to the timeline, but that's what they're doing, guys. Now, the X-Men Red book is going to be written by Tom Taylor, a guy who I'm actually excited to read about it because it's him. Tom Taylor did the Injustice comic book, which is the comic book based off the video game by DC Comics. And actually, the story is really good. So the fact that he's going to be handling something like this gives me hope that the story will be pretty decent. I am, however, a little weary about it. I honestly don't want Jean Grey to come back. I don't know if I talked about this when I talked about the Resurrection, the Phoenix Resurrection, but I'm liking the Jean Grey and Scott Summers we have right now. They're younger. It's like a fresh start for them. I love the character of Cyclops. People know me. I'm a Cyclops guy. They killed off the older Cyclops to where we just have the younger Cyclops now. And I'm fine with that. I like what they're doing with him in X-Men Blue. I've liked what they've done with him ever since they brought the original Teenage X-Men to the present. It's good stuff. So bringing in another Jean Grey, I feel like it's going to be a little weird. Could be some good drama, especially when Jean Grey meets up with her teenage self, or teenage Jean meets up with her resurrected older self. Could be some good drama. But I like how you had for a while there two Scott Summers, or two Cyclops. And then you got rid of one of them. Maybe not to make it less confusing, but to make it clear where the focus was. I know there's also rumors of bringing back the original Wolverine, which again, I think is a mistake. Right now, not only do we have Old Man Logan, but we also have his, I guess you want to say, son from an alternate timeline or an alternate universe, Jimmy, who's wearing the brown Wolverine costume. And, there's also X-23 and Denkin and all those other characters that are like Wolverine, so why bring him back? That's how I feel about Jean Grey. Why do we need to bring Jean Grey back when we already have a Jean Grey that I think works so well in the comics? Now, like I said, this could be some good drama, good storytelling. I'm all about that. But in the long run, I don't see how it's going to benefit the characters. But the guys over at Marvel are much smarter than I. Tom Taylor, I trust him as a storyteller, so I got to put my faith in them. I love my X-Men, and I'm excited to see what is to come with these characters. So for now, I'm just going to say that while I don't love the idea, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. And that's it, guys. That is my show for today. Let me know what you think. Hit me up, dayspringdiscussions@gmail.com, Facebook group, and on Twitter. What do you think about Rian Johnson take over a new Star Wars trilogy? And what do you think it's going to be? That's going to be the big question. People are going to be speculating for this, I think, for at least a year or two until they actually announce what it's going to be about. And then, of course, if you're an X-Men reader, how do you feel about bringing back Jean Grey? Are you like me and you're kind of weary about it? Mainly because they bring back so many comic book characters. It'd be nice to see one of them just stay dead. And the fact that we already have Jean Grey in the comics still. Why do we need to bring her back at all? Let me know what you think, guys. Hit me up on social media and the Gmail account. And that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. And until next time, may the Force be with us all.